This is Tuned Into the Land, the California Rangeland Trust podcast. Here, we will dig into a variety of topics with the partners, conservationists, and ranchers who demonstrate every day, through their words and actions, the importance of conserving California's working lands. Tune in each month to learn more about our mission and how you can get involved in preserving the future of the Golden State for generations to come.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Tune Into the Land. I am your host, Michael Delbar, CEO of the California Rangeland Trust. When we think America, most immediately think baseball. Baseball, apple pie, that sounds pretty American. But there is one sport that embodies the very nature of America, the toughness, the values, the independence, the pride. And that sport is rodeo. From the time the Spanish conquistadors and Mexican vaqueros brought cattle and horses to America during the 1500s, the practices of roping, riding, and branding all took hold during the expansion of the American West. The word rodeo is actually derived from the Spanish word for roundup, and the term cowboy emerged during the expansion of the American West, which saw an abundance of wild cattle after the Civil War. This led to a rise in cattle drives, large ranches, and range cowboys who eventually organized competitive contests that evolved into the rodeo we know today. So not only did the origin of rodeo come from the open range, many of today's competitors get their start in and around the ranching industry. Without these working lands, one could argue that we may not even have a continuance of this prized Western tradition. If you've ever been to a rodeo, you know that when the red, white, and blue comes flying in the arena, the only sounds you hear are the hooves of the horse as it carries our flag and all it represents. When the national anthem plays, there is not a hat on a head or a knee on the ground. There may be only a few dry eyes when it's done. Rodeo exemplifies the history, the passion, and the culture of the American West. July 22nd is National Day of the Cowboy, though every day is the Day of the Cowboy for ranchers. This special holiday originated in 2005 as a way to honor and preserve the role and contributions cowboys and cowgirls made to the Western heritage and history of our country. When the holiday was declared, President George W. Bush said, "We celebrate the cowboy as a symbol of the grand history of the American West. The cowboy's love of the land and love of the country are examples for all Americans." So in honor of this holiday, we thought it'd be special to welcome a very special guest and quite a notable cowboy in his own right. We are thrilled to have with us today a native Californian who has rodeoed across the state and across the country. Raised on a ranch in Santa Barbara County, he took the skills he learned on the family ranch and refined them into a career in professional rodeo. In this episode, we'll dive into his upbringing, his family's ranching traditions, and the values instilled in him that shaped his path to becoming a world-class rodeo athlete. So please welcome to Tune Into the Land podcast, 5-time world champion steer wrestler, Luke Branquinho.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys for having me on. Everything you just said right there is America, and it's an honor to be a cowboy and be able to represent this wonderful country. And I've got to do it in multiple other countries in New Zealand, Australia, Brazil, Canada. And you're exactly right. When they think cowboy, they think American cowboys.
Your family had a long-standing ranching history in California. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, multiple generations, grew up, my mom's way back when on an old Spanish land grant. And that became what was Rancho San Juan, where my mom was born and raised, where I was born and raised. And, just to be able to have that upbringing in such a wonderful area with such wonderful farming and ranching families around us, you couldn't ask for a better way to grow up.
How do you feel that being part of the ranching industry helped shape you as you were a kid?
Well, I think it's huge. And I mean, you guys know as well as anybody that a kid that is brought up on that type of landscape, they have to learn values. They have to learn hard work. They have to learn, everything really that a lot of people don't even understand nowadays. Hard work ethic, the way my folks brought us up to be men at a young age. You have to learn that way of life when you're on a ranch, because that's how you make a living. That's how you survive. And, for us to grow up, it wasn't a hobby for us. It was a job. Our parents needed the help. And as soon as we could ride a horse, we were that help. My two older brothers and I, and, that is something that America as a whole, I think, has lost a lot of sight of. And for me to be able to grow up that way and try to raise Lindsay and my boys that way, it's important to us. And, I wouldn't have traded it for anything in the world.
So raising livestock and all of the activities that go along with that, how did that shape you and get you involved in rodeo activities?
Well, I think just being a rancher, it was a way of life when you weren't on the farm. When we were young, we always helped my parents from the time we could get on the back of a horse. That was, a job of ours to help my folks, work cattle and just everything that went with it, branding, doctoring. That was way of life from an early age. And when you transition that into when I got older, rodeo, it made me understand hard work would pay off, and dedication to whatever it is you're doing would only benefit you in the long run. So I think that helped shape me tremendously. And you get out of it what you put into it. And at a young age, we put a lot of effort into, the farming and ranching side of that. And I, transitioned that into my rodeo career. I knew if I put in a lot, I would get a lot back out of it.
So what were those early years like in getting into the rodeo?
Oh, it was definitely a learning curve, trying to understand life on the road and how to make it all work, and then needing to get back to the ranch to help my folks. It was figuring out how to juggle your time to make it all happen and be able to be where I needed to be. One, to be a winner in the arena, and two, to be at the ranch and helping my folks. And the older I got, the time at the ranch kind of took a back seat to the rodeo world for me, because I was having a lot of success in the business, and my parents understood that and knew that and supported it 100%.
Well, that success, it was very clear when you qualify for the National Finals Rodeo 14 times, not to mention winning 5 national championships in steer wrestling, and obviously countless more wins along the way. That's a pretty impressive career, Luke.
Yeah, it was very, very, I was very fortunate with my career, and fortunate that I had my folks, one, at a young age, that gave us the tools to be successful. And it didn't matter if it was rodeo or sports, it didn't matter. They provided us tools. Now it was up to us to use those and to the best of, what we could. And, they never forced anything on us, but if there was something we wanted to do, they gave us every opportunity to do it. And again, just, it was up to us to use it. And, I couldn't have asked for any more from them, because they gave blood, sweat, and tears for us to be successful. And there's not enough words of appreciation to say to show to them, how fortunate we were and how lucky we were to have them.
A lot of us have the opportunity to watch rodeos and seeing you in person competing, and kind of curious what goes through your mind as you're getting ready to compete. For example, you've got you're on your horse, you're next in the go around, and you back your horse into the box. That steer's settling in. What are you thinking about at that moment in time?
It's just muscle memory. I mean, I think if I was thinking at that time, things didn't go right. I practiced. I always said when I was practicing for high school and rodeos, it wasn't that I was practicing for high school rodeos. I was practicing for a year down the road, and you just train your body and train for that muscle memory. And to do that, when I backed in the box at the rodeos in my professional career, it wasn't, I didn't have much thinking about it. I prepared for it at years before that. So, you just muscle memory, took over and I didn't want to have to think about it, because if I did, it wasn't good. So I'd back to the box confident, knowing that I had prepared for that moment years in advance and tried to stay hooked with it that way.
What would you say is your most memorable moment in competing?
Most memorable moment for me would, just being able to go and win world championships, but looking up in the stands and seeing my family there, because they were the ones that were behind me, 100%. I can't describe one other than when I did, and looking up there and seeing them there, those are the things that I'll remember forever.
That's cool. So you have 3 kids. Why do you think it's important to raise them in and around the ranching and rodeo industries?
Raising the boys, I think, for me, important to have them around that lifestyles, because it's the best way to grow up. Like I said earlier, that I feel that's where our education system has failed, as far as teaching just any city kid how America was started, and knowing that where their food does actually come from. And raising my kids like that, I'm hoping that they'll be able to educate, maybe some friends that don't understand it. They'll be able to educate those kids, and those kids could help educate other kids. The more kids we educate in that lifestyle and that way of life, I think is just going to benefit the industry and our nation more than anything.
Well, you practice that too, because you and your wife both have social media pages and you share your day-to-day activities on the ranch. So as an industry, where do you feel, or why do you feel that's important to share these glimpses into every side of the industry in your lives?
Well, I'm not saying our industry has failed, but we get caught up in just working and head down, and I think I could say this, head down, ass up, just to maintain a way of life that we know. And I think since social media has come around, the industry has done better as far as sharing it. But if we could share it as the leaders in the industry, it's just going to help benefit it more. And, my wife's done a great job with her social, way better than I do, as far as trying to show people or give people a glimpse in everyday life out on the farm and the ranch, and helping people understand, that's how we make a living, and that's how we try to raise the boys. And that's, to me, that's very important as far as letting people understand our way of life and kind of just a glimpse inside of it. And, we try to do the best we can, whether we're on the road, on the rodeo trail, now more so, for me on the television side of stuff, but even with our podcast and things like that, just to help the people understand where we come from and how we're living.
One of our previous episodes of this podcast, we talked about gate getters and gatekeepers and the difference between the two, and the importance of being a gate getter, opening the gate and sharing our experiences, as opposed to kind of some of the older school of gatekeepers, where we're not sharing those experiences. And I think you've hit on it real well as to the importance of telling our story, showing what it's like to be in the ranching industry or the rodeoing business, and all of the work it takes and why we do what we do. And both you and your wife have done a very good job at sharing that.
Yeah, and she's done an exceptional job of, showing people what we've done, and what we do as far as, that industry. And you're exactly right. I think, gate getters is spot on. And I feel like as an industry, and with what you guys are doing with this podcast, and, I think it's huge to keep that tradition going now, especially with the luxury of social media and these dang smartphones, and hopefully try to get the algorithm where when people Google, farming, ranching, these things pop up and they're able to, educate themselves on everything this wonderful lifestyle brings.
Years ago, we had an opportunity to present a video at Cow Palace, kind of introducing the work we do. And Bob Tallman was the announcer. And when Bob teed up that video, we couldn't have scripted it any better. Bob said that the men and women that you're all about to watch in the arena tonight got their start on these working ranches, and the skills that they've learned, and they've been able to transfer that into being the contestants before you all tonight. How do you connect the competition in rodeo and those skills to the work of conserving these working ranches?
Well, they connect, in a straight line as far as I'm concerned. There's no zigzag. And I think these cowboys from the past helped obviously shape the rodeo world we live in today. And I'm sitting here in Cheyenne, Wyoming, and Cheyenne or Wyoming, the cowboy state and they prove it here at Cheyenne. And, I think it translates, 1-on-1, these cowboys from the past to the cowboys now. But what's cool about that, in my opinion, is you don't have to come from a working ranch now, because they did the work back in the past. These guys, there's a lot of guys that, when they're done rodeo, they go home to, just a regular house and don't have a lot of property. And I think for me personally, that is awesome to see that these guys or cowgirls, they don't need to come from a working ranch to love the lifestyle and compete in it. Again, like I said, I think that work got done in the past, and it translates over into people that don't have to come from a ranching background. And you see it a lot more maybe in the rough stock side of it, but also in the timed events. As long as they can have a place to keep their horse, and then they can hook up their trailer and go practice somewhere, they don't have to be from that lifestyle to be able to enjoy it and compete in the rodeo.
But if we lose those places for those opportunities, whether they're helping out on another working ranch or as simple as boarding the horse and a place to ride, we've lost that opportunity for these folks to hone those skills.
Yeah, lots of, and again, these ranches, they're going to welcome anybody that wants to learn and get better, because they need the help, So again, it all translates into hard work and dedication, wherever you come from or what background you're from. If you have that and want to get better, these ranches will welcome you in, or you just do it yourself. And that's how I've seen a lot of successful people come from doing that.
So you are in Cheyenne getting ready for Frontier Days and traveling around. You were just up in Canada for the Stampede, Calgary Stampede, and you also had a busy week last week. Your induction into the Pro Rodeo Hall of Fame. Congratulations. That is so exciting.
Yeah, thanks. It was very, humbling and an honor for sure. But yeah, it's busy. It's nonstop. I thought when I retired from rodeo, kind of slow down. But one thing I will say is when you retire from rodeo, there's no guaranteed income because I'm not competing. So I got to take these jobs, and then be able to work the Calgary Stampede and do the broadcast for the Stampede was really neat. And then now down in Cheyenne, I was watching Slack and getting ready. The PBR hired me to do PBR teams bull riding as a sideline reporter. So it's awesome to be able to continue working in the industry, but I guess not having to worry about getting hurt out in the arena. So, that's pretty cool. And the opportunities that the rodeo and frankly, the ranching industry has opened up for me as far as broadcasts and things like that. It's pretty neat.
So you also have a podcast. Tell us a little bit about where people can hear you and catch that, or any other upcoming events that you want to share.
Yeah. So a buddy of mine came to me and said, "Hey, you need to start a podcast. I'll introduce you to a production company," and end up partnering with Bandit Productions. They got a really cool studio in Phoenix, Bitfire Studios, and we did the first few shows there at the studio and figured out it was easier for me to do it from home and not having to fly to Phoenix. And they've been awesome, but we call it the Luke Branquinho Show. I know, pretty crazy name, but it's been good. And we are learning, every episode we're learning they're learning more about the rodeo industry, and I'm learning more about the actual production side of it and trying to just get better and make it better. And we've had some awesome guests. Our first one was JB Mooney. You know, you get a guy like that as your first guest, you know, a lot of people Google JB Mooney and really helps with the views. But I was on the phone with them yesterday, and we're up a little over 4,000 subscribers, and it's very neat. You know, you get guys like that, Joe Beaver, Fred Whitfield, Cody Ole, Stetson Wright was huge. To be able to get those guests and hear their stories of whether they're competing now or what they did in the past and what they're doing now, if they're retired from the industry. I think a lot of people love to hear those stories.
We're extremely fortunate to have you on our podcast, and so appreciative of your time and everything that you've done for not only ranching industry in California, but for the rodeo competitions. And it has been a real treat to see you in person competing, and always seeing that there's a California guy, and he's kicking butt up there, and it's so fun to watch. Really, really enjoyed when you were competing. And we're really appreciative that you took the time to be part of our podcast here. That to us is special.
Well, it's, for me, being able to be a Californian and seeing what, California Rangeland Trust is doing to try to help preserve, the California heritage out there and keeping the farming, ranching, Western way of life alive, for me it's amazing to be able to see that. And I got to see it when I was younger with my mom being, on the board, and everybody that's been involved, and a lot of friends that were made from it. And, hopefully you guys continue to do what you do. And as in the words of, make America great again, keep California great, which I know can be a struggle, unfortunately, with everything going on out there. But you guys are doing a great job. I'm proud to be a supporter of the Rangeland Trust.
Well, Luke, thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Tuned Into the Land. Be sure to check out Luke on social media at Luke Branquinho to see what he's up to. Today, July 22nd, is National Day of the Cowboy, though we really know that every day is the Day of the Cowboy for America's ranchers. To celebrate, immerse yourself in the Western lifestyle. You can watch a rodeo, barbecue for a family, or even connect with a local rancher. No matter how you celebrate, be sure to tip your hat to America's Cowboys. This closes the gate on another episode of Tune Into the Land. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you'll be notified when the next episode is released.